Welcome to the Flux Dev Meeting. It's September 18th. Let's get started.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
So we have some updates today, but first let's start with an important note that Deepti found out about the Flux migrate command, which is new in Flux 2.7 for migrating the Flux CRDs from versions that are now removed in Flux 2.7 and therefore need to be migrated. So please, Deepti, bring it up.
Yeah, so I think the observation was that uh, if there are Kubernetes clusters that have had a version of the CRD, like a resource with a version of a CRD created, which has been removed, which is like the V1 Beta 1 APIs, for example, then all of those clusters would need to run the fluxcd migrate command to successfully move the CRD status.stored versions, which would refer to V1 Beta 1 in their clusters to the latest version, which is V1. Failing to do so will cause an update failure because the CRD status.stored versions will refer to V1 Beta 1 and it will not let you remove that from the CRD spec. So any cluster where resources have been created with these older versions would need to run the fluxcd migrate command to move forward successfully.
And the highlight, if I understand correctly, is that users that had those versions in the past that had already migrated also have to run the
Yeah,
command, right?
if
That's
they
the
had,
key
yes, if
finding you had.
Yeah, if they have created V1 Beta 1 resources in their cluster at some point, maybe 3 years ago, they need to run the fluxcd migrate command as well so that the CRD status dot stored version gets cleared for V1 Beta 1 and gets updated to V1, which is what the fluxcd migrate command does today.
Right. Even if the object is now in V1, they still have to do.
Yes.
Right. All right. Thanks for that note, Deepti. It's very important, especially because um, that basically increases the surface of users that will have to do that a lot, right? Like even the users that I don't know what's the proportion of users that uh are always on the latest version of Flux, but I would like to think that most of them do. So that's a note for all of them, right? So thanks for that. All right. Let me see the agenda here if we have anything.
Oh, it looks
Not
like
yet.
we haven't started our agenda doc yet for today.
Yeah. All right. So let's do it. I'm gonna copy.
Yeah, I too would like to think, given all the emphasis in Flux about automatic upgrading, that all of our users are on the latest version all the time.
Deep, sorry, just one sec. Let's not modify the template. Let's copy the
Oh, sorry, I'll fix it. I'll fix it.
yeah yeah. Let me just create a new one real quick. Uh, September 18. All right, you can write down in the other section. Sorry, was you talking about something, Kinga?
I was just reiterating what you already said about users and upgrading. I didn't want to say that my support experience, because you get a different experience when people come for support questions. I find a lot of people haven't upgraded yet, but um, given all of the emphasis inside of the Flux machinery on automatic upgrades, users should be upgrading automatically. We have great tools to help you do that. The Flux operator makes it dead simple at this point. There used to be a lot of different ways to keep Flux up to date, and now there's really one simple way that I
Right.
think everyone should hopefully be using.
Yeah. Good point.
I'm talking about
Um.
wildcards in the Flux instance, of course. That's the easy way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so in production, I would use the wildcard only for patch versions, right? Especially in a situation like this. Like this is the first Flux 2 version that users cannot upgrade from any of the two versions of the 2.x.x versions to like it's the first wall, right? Like you now users can only go as far as 2.6, run the migration, and then go to 2.7. Before the 2.7, you could always go from any version of Flux to the latest. That's no longer true. It's the first time that is no longer true. So because of that, in production, I would recommend users to fix the minor version and to pin the minor version. And but sure, in test clusters, I mean, obviously don't plan to have things like that very often, right? Like 2.7s in the sense of being an up like requiring an upgrade, a manual upgrade procedure. But yeah, in test clusters, you could do that. You could like use 2.wildcard. Um, all right. So, well, does anybody, well, I guess I should start with the updates about the release and then we can move on to other topics. And if anybody have any specific topics, please add them to the agenda. Does everybody here has access to the agenda doc? I see Deepti in the document, of course, Kingdom, Augie, and Adrian. So yes, everybody does. So yeah, anybody feel free to add notes there while I give the release update. So uh, procedure is going well. We have already released image reflector controller for Flux 2.7, image automation controller, source controller, and source watcher, the new Flux controller. So actually, it's obviously old, right? It's a controller that served as an example of how to watch Flux source objects and consume them, right? So that's what it has been historically, but with external artifacts API coming in source controller Flux 2.7, we now have a very cool use case for source watcher, which is composition and decomposition of sources. So with source watcher, the new Flux controller, the 7th Flux controller, you are able to open up an OCI artifact, a bucket, or a Git repo, and split it into multiple smaller, for example, artifacts, copying files from various paths to various destination paths. So you can do this decomposition of an artifact. And you can also, of course, reference multiple sources and copy parts of them to compose a single artifact. And so yeah, I already talked about this a little bit in the last Flux meeting, if I remember correctly, but well, it's a new thing. We're talking about the release here. No harm in bringing it up again. It's a pretty cool feature. We have plans for it in Flux.8 to add more features there. We can use external artifact as a source there and not just as an output, right? It's of course the main thing, it's an output. It's what the controller produces, right? External artifact objects, but it can also be a source, and we can also make Helm chart sources as well. And the two operations we support in that API right now, in the artifact generator API from Source Watcher, are copy and merge YAML values. You can do those two things. We use the copy semantics of the CP terminal command. You can use glob patterns and everything. And the other operation you can do is merge YAML. And we use the same logic as Helm. So this allows you to, this actually solves a problem that many Flux users have had with OCI repo Helm charts. So with OCI repo Helm charts, users no longer can choose values files from inside the chart, right? Like in the if I'm not mistaken, in the Helm chart API of Flux, you can do that, right? Like I think you can select values, YAML files that are inside the chart. And you can't do that with OCI repo, but now you can with this new API called artifact generator. So you can compose the both overlay, like customized overlays, for example, or Helm chart values files in the chart that Helm controller will consume. So
So you write a expression that copies over the values.yaml file instead of,
yes. Yeah,
oh,
it's not, the expression is not even complex. It's like mostly declarative, like the expression is really just glob patterns with the paths of from and to, right? So yeah, oh, actually we do have expression because the you start the path with an alias for the source, right? The from path. So you have in a copy operation, you have from and to. And in the from path, you start with the at symbol, the alias of the source. So in the source's input, you specify an alias for the source. Why should you be able to do that? Because it's possible that not all Kubernetes name fields are proper for a path, and hence why you can have this alias field, which is what defines how you reference a source in a path. So let's say you have three, like a bucket, a Git repo, and OCI repo, and in your artifact, the output, you have several copy operations that reference all the three sources all over, and you do that by starting the path with the alias at alias / something. And in the to path, that will be a path in the artifact, you start with at artifact. In this case, it's not an alias, just keyword. And you can also, you have like a merge strategy field to say, actually copy the YAML values of this file onto and merge them onto what I have in this path. So yeah, and that allows you to do all sorts of things for Helm charts, right? Like copy values.yaml files for different environments. For example, you can do everything you want, like many things with this merge strategy as well. So yeah, a very powerful tool coming in Flux 2.7. So these operations are already available, which are already part of the API, but using a Helm chart and an external artifact as a source is, we have open issues for each one. We have actually just two issues in the repo, and those two issues are those two, one for Helm charts, one for an external artifact. Yeah, very exciting.
This new controller is optional, right? That is, even if it
Yes.
doesn't exist in the Flux installation or even after Flux 2.7, if it's not present, everything else, like there's no requirement to have it.
Yes, good point. How is it installed and configured? It's a good question.
Do you need to
Since
install it in order to get the new external artifact behavior? I think is my first question.
no. So let's separate things. First thing is external artifact is now a core API in source controller. It's a source controller API. But to make customized controller and Helm controller consume external artifacts, there's a feature gate. So you have to enable this feature gate in customized controller and Helm controller so they can consume external artifacts. That's one thing. Now, the other thing related to what DP asked is how the controller is installed. So we integrated the controller with the Flux distribution. This means that installing the controller is easy, but it's disabled by default, so it's optional. And how you do it is you use the same flag that we already have for Flux install and Flux Bootstrap for the two image automation controllers. So we have the components extra field in Flux install and in Flux Bootstrap. That's what you're going to use for Source Watcher as well. Now you have three controllers that can be passed in that flag.
You said that external artifact is part of the core API, which means the CRD
Uh,
needs to be present for source controller to be updated to the latest version.
Well, it's a new CRD in 2.7, right? In Source Controller 1.7, essentially.
Mhm. Yeah, so because source controller consumes it, I think it needs to be present, right? Or
No, source controller does not consume the API. It exposes the API.
okay.
It's the repo where we declare the structs and build the YAML and publish the YAML. That's all source controller does in like relating to external artifact. Nothing else. It only exposes the API. Um, so So the CRD will come in the distribution by default, the external artifact. But that does not mean that the standard Flux controllers will be able to consume this API, which are customized controller and home controller. You still need to enable the feature gate in those controllers to make them accept external artifact as a source. But the CRD will still be installed in the cluster by default in Flux 2.7.
Yep, thank you.
Cool. All right. So, well, yeah, very exciting. And yeah, so resuming the update about the release, we released those four controllers, image reflector and automation, source controller, and source watcher. So we're missing now notification controller, customized controller, and Helm controller. Those will be released next week when Stefan is back from vacations. And we will also we are planning to complete the release of Flux 2.7 next week. And yeah, and also Flux Operator, of course, is always released a new version when we release Flux. So users can expect that as well. And yeah, well, we are also taking the opportunity that we are introducing a new controller in the distribution to refactor CI a little bit. So we, as a result of Stefan going to a GitHub security camp, He said that the key takeaway there was to have for a project like Flux that has multiple repos and it's very complex because of that, is to have the workflows placed in a central repo and let GitHub Actions Dependabot updates run there instead of in every repo. That helps a lot with security audits and practices, of course. So we have now already a few like a handful of core workflows that we have in Flux in that repo already. I also already I made the controller release workflow, so now all the controllers will invoke this release workflow from there. It doesn't have the salsa provenance part because they are already reusable workflows from another org, the salsa org. So those will still be jobs in the workflows of each controller in each repo, which is kind of a bad because well we kind of lose a bit of the we could have put those jobs in the controller release workflow, but we prefer not to because we prefer to keep there only the workflows that belong to our org. So like putting other reusable workflows there from other orgs would complicate security audits and things like that. So we're just gonna put there our own workflows. We're workflows from other orgs. We're gonna have to invoke them on the repo itself. Well, hot about Flux, I guess that's it. Release and external artifacts, source watcher, Flux migrate. Yeah, I mean, I guess from my side, from the update side, that's it. So let's see next topic here. Adrian, as you have one, enhancement proposal with regards of the new hotel provider. Support extended use cases where a source customize any resource is applied, having a unique root span reference to gather all the resources applied by the customization. All right, interesting. All right. Do you want to talk about this, Adrian? Do you want to?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, sure. Well, I created an issue for this. But yeah, the main idea here is like we've been internally maintaining testing a little bit the auto this new provider, and what we came across is that we tend to have more, let's say, advanced use cases or more complex setups in terms of that we gather most of the Flux resources into a repo. We're trying to apply that from that. So let's say we have a unique source or multiple sources from most likely from a Git repository to gather most likely configuration, and then Kubernetes manifest or whatsoever. And then we tend to apply that into our cluster. So then in the repos, we tend to have Flux CD resources. We tend to have sources and releases, alerts, and so on and so forth. And then when we look at the at Jagger, all the traces and everything, we see that we have a huge collection of traces. So we are not able to, so to say, gather everything into one based on the customization that applied all those resources. So here with the my idea was to be able also like having it enable it by some kind of feature flag or something, and be able to have kind of an annotation that will go through all the resources applied by the customization by this common annotation, and be able to have kind of a reference that we can gather all these traces up. Then we can also implement some kind of logic to have, instead of a flat collection of spans under a trace, we can add, let's say, a more nested structure, knowing that what we are going to get from the annotation, it differs from what we are getting from the event. So in this way, sorry, from the event by default. So we can guess more or less if there is, let's say, a source on top that for that particular resource. So that's a little bit the idea. I tried to explain that in the issue. And my point was just to bring this up, and yeah, we can follow it up here in the issue or whatever do you think is best. Mhm.
All right, so let me see if I get this right.
Mhm.
The main issue you want to address here is that there are a bunch of traces in the tracing database that
Yeah.
could be correlated and grouped together, right? Is that
Exactly. And the principle here of the rationale is like everything will be gathered based on customization. So we may expect that we are going to have, let's say, a top source, a customization, and then a resources applied. These resources could be another source. So in order to have the reference of all these upstream resources to the top source, we can, let's say, add this common annotation that by default or automatically is going to populate over all the resources, and then we have it. So if we follow the convention of this event toolkit, it's going to be available also in the event metadata. So in this way, we are able to have, let's say, imagine that I have a OCR repository source and then a hem release, but all of this has been applied by a customization. In my hem repository, I will have the revision ID from the OCR repository, as well as the revision from the Git repository, which is the top source, the one that is going to be on top. So in this way, I have full trace about which is the source that applied that resource and the resource from the hem release. Not sure if I
right?
explained that properly.
Right.
Yeah.
But so there's something I'm not sure I understood. So
Mhm.
the bunch of traces that you have right now that are not correlated and could be,
Yeah.
are them a bunch because they are, for example, all the resources applied by a customization?
Exactly. All of them tend to be applied by a single
But
customization.
then how do they even reach uh like is that a consequence of what you implemented in notification controller? Because if I understand correctly, what we did is actually not very complicated, right? It's
No. Mhm.
we have source controller
Yeah.
and customized controller, maybe helm controller. Not sure about this one though. But
Mm.
we have these controllers send events from the
Exactly.
reconciliation to
Mhm.
notification controller, right? Like
Yeah.
simple Flux
Yeah.
notification controller flow, except
Yeah.
that this provider that we implemented, when it's configured, what it does is to extract the digest revision,
Mhm.
whatever,
Yes.
from
Yeah.
the event, which will come from both controllers, both source controller and the applier controllers, right?
Yeah.
The because that's the only way I can imagine them being correlated at the end of the day, right? We I remember the correlation, the root span ID
Mhm.
is the UID of the alert object with
Yeah.
the revision
Revision.
of the source,
Yeah.
right? So the revision comes on events from both controllers. both source controller and customized controller, for example, right?
Yeah, yeah. But here the problem is, imagine that I have Git
So one second,
source. Sorry.
just to like state my question clearly, like, so given that this is what you have, how come we have traces, fine-grained traces for resources applied by a customization when the events that reach source notification controller are about
Yeah.
the customization as a unit?
Yeah, that could happen if, for example, my customization applies another source, and that source points to or is used by a hem release that is also applied by the customization.
Okay, so what you're saying is so this is kind of a specific scenario, right? Like you're saying, okay, I have something that applies a bunch of other objects that by themselves also generate events and like reconciliations and therefore events in Flux and eventually reach the tracing database, right? So
Exactly.
right, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
so you're talking about a scenario where you have a Flux supplier that applies a bunch of sources, right?
Exactly.
So a bunch of sources. Okay, and how are you proposing us to make the correlation in this case? Huh? Can you
Yeah,
explain that again,
yeah,
please?
yeah, sure. What I was thinking is using the common annotation feature in the customization. So when it gets applied, all these resources, we can add a common annotation when we can pass the top source, the top revision from that particular source, and we can add that as annotation. So then with the customization applies all these resources, all this annotation will get propagated all across
Yeah,
using this
sure.
common annotation.
I can see this. So
Mhm.
so this can for example, I think you're talking about RFC 008, right?
No,
Uh
11. I think it's 11.
no, I mean yeah, 11 is the hotel one, but I'm talking about
Oh,
the way we pass events around, right? Like annotations.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I see.
so so we have this feature in Flux where you put an annotation on a Flux object with the prefix event.toolkit.fluxcd.io
Exactly.
slash something. So
Exactly.
this when you have this an annotation in a Flux object
Yeah.
that has this prefix, what the
Yeah.
controller does is to send it on the event metadata,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Yeah.
That's what you're talking about, right?
Exactly. Using that specific feature and be able to populate that top revision, and also it's going to be automatically
Right.
as part of the event.
So what you're saying is let's have a feature in the appliers that
Yeah.
embed an annotation like that on applied resources,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. With this
Right,
event toolkit.
right. I suppose we may already have a few features like that. I'm not sure, but I think we probably have something like that. Let me check real quick
Yeah,
here.
sure.
So common metadata. So in in customization, we have spec.common metadata. What it does is there's a few labels and a few annotations. Yeah, should be applied to all the customizations resources. It has to, yeah. So for example, in customization, you have spec.common metadata. I suppose you already saw that, or did you
Yeah.
not?
Yeah. I saw that. Yes.
So since you're proposing to build something else, I assume you checked that and said, no, this does not work for this use case. Is that
Um,
correct?
yeah, it doesn't work because I cannot know what the revision is ID is going to be. So that should come from the customization, because
Right.
that's the
So
one
what you
that
want
is
to
going
do
to get
is
up on the.
you want to
So,
you want to propagate the revision across the resources with standard annotation.
Yeah, exactly, with this event toolkit
Right.
whatsoever.
All right. So before we decide to do that, I would like to understand how, for example, so one scenario where you have like I would like to understand how that will affect the logic we have today for composing the trace, the root, the span ID, right? Like so today's alert UID and revision,
Yeah.
how will that change this? And like what happens because like what's the interpretation of
Yeah.
a scenario where you have a source that applies a customization that applies a bunch of other sources that get that serve as source for a bunch of other applier objects, and this goes on and on. You have like a tree with 10 levels deep or something,
Yeah.
and like what do you expect to see in the traces? What if there's a bunch of sources, if each one of them has their own revision, right? So
Yeah.
why like is the only the revision of the root source is it the only one that is relevant? Is it not? And
Yeah.
so yeah, but what's your answer for this scenario?
Yeah, that's a good point actually. That's what I was thinking. I mean, in my view, if you have if the notification controller takes the event and sees that the metadata, this common annotation is set, we can guess that that is going to be the root span because everything is going to be, we would like to gather everything into one source because that's the end, the one that is applying everything. And then we can, this is something that I need to play with, is be able to create uh, part the span relationships. And then you can have more levels of depth. So in this way, you can have, imagine, a source customization, then there's the customization, you're going to have another source and another object, for example, hem release. So then you can have multiple layers of depth. That was kind of
I see.
my idea.
So
Mm,
actually, as a trace can be
mm,
as complex as a tree,
exactly. Yeah,
right?
yeah. I need to play with this.
A trace is actually a root span that
Yes.
that can have this tree structure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If you open, I mean, this is a very initial um a scenario, but if you open the issue that I think I shared that in the agenda, yeah, in the notes, I have an screenshot that how it will look like, very initial with
Mm.
just one level of depth. So you are going to have a Git repository, a customization, and then OCR repository and the collection of hand releases. So if we are able to make it work with a parent, the idea will be that under the OCR repository is going to be the parent of the collection of her releases because that's the source. Let's
Right.
say that's
So
the source.
you're using OCR repository as the source for a bunch of Helm releases. It's a single Helm
Exactly,
chart.
exactly the same culture. Yeah,
And the customization applies the OCI repo and the Helm releases.
exactly,
And the source of the customization is the Git repository.
exactly. Yeah.
Right. And uh, what you are showing in that screenshot in the issue, is it how it will look like after we have something, or is it what you see with the current implementation?
Yeah, that's with some changes. I mentioned that in the issue. Adding some changes to provide the common annotation and
Oh,
some
so
minor
you did
changes. Yeah.
experiment already in the code,
Yeah.
and this is how it would look like.
Yeah, yeah, but I need to still play a bit around with the parent spans just to have more level of depth because if you see here just here we have just one element of depth. I need to play that with multiple and see how it looks like.
Right.
But yeah, here I
And
just want
can you please help me interpret what I see in
yeah,
the screenshot? Like
yeah,
I see, let's say I see one row for each object here.
yeah.
Is this screen telling me somehow that they are related? They don't see quite related. Is this like, is this
Yeah.
screen the screen for a single
Single trace, yes.
single trace? Or
Yeah,
is
this
it
is
the ID on the top C43B053?
yeah, exactly. So that will mean, I mean, all of this is what is going to be under a unique alert UID and the revision. The revision in this case is going to be the care repository revision. So that's what is going to be what this trace will gather. Imagine that I add any change in the care repository. I change the customization or the OCI whatsoever. That will create another trace, another yeah trace, which
Right,
might not be here. Yeah,
right. So could, for example, let's say I have a complex tree here, right?
yeah,
Where the root trace ID is that
mhm,
one, right? And then
mhm,
I have other sources and everything.
yeah.
Can I go to a screen in the UI here to see another source that is already part of this trace as the root of its own tree?
Yeah, that's what I need to work on a little bit. That's what I refer
Mm,
to parent span because under a trace, the traces are root span, so you can it's unique. You can have one, and we already agreed on that, like alert UND and revision. Then the idea will be all the spans underneath creates this complex tree by adding parent spans. So in my view here, if you see the OCR repository should be the parent span of all the releases. So we should see two levels of depth. Then your repository customization, OCR repository, and then underneath OCR repository hand releases. These three, so to say.
um,
Yeah.
right. So, okay, so if we do that, if we come up with a strategy to set up these parent spans relationship,
Mhm.
um, so let me understand, are you like, you're still in the process of understanding of how such relationships could be built? Or do you
Yeah.
understand that
Mhm.
already?
Mhm.
And what you're thinking about actually right now is how to do that in Flux.
No, I understand how it works, but the uh, I don't want to say limitation, but the problem comes from OTel SDK because when you are setting a parent span, it expects that the that span ID is already existing in the system in the backend. So you cannot, I mean, you can force it, but it will say that it doesn't exist. So you cannot create those relationships pretty accurate. So that's what I need to investigate. If this is an issue on the hotel SDK that I can ask for a fix on, this is something that should be like this. That's what I'm trying to investigate, what is happening there. Because that's the problem. I mean, if I can force that OCR repository does have a specific span ID based on, for example, the object, the OCR repository object UAD and the revision, and that one is the one that I'm going to set as parent for the hand release, that will be perfect because I can set all these relationship out of the box without any particular issue. So that's what the limitation comes from. I don't think it's on Flux. It's more about how Hotel manage all these parent spans and how it's populated across the exports and everything. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So but so now my next question is,
Mhm.
um does you figuring out that part have an impact on the design we should do for Flux? Like the way we design things in Flux,
Mhm.
Does that depend on the outcome of your investigation in the hotel SDK? Or
Mm.
if the answer is yes, then I guess we can't discuss much more right now. But if not, if you think that the annotation idea would work regardless of the outcome of this investigation in the SDK, then we can discuss that right now.
Um, I mean, I would like to investigate the span and the spans because I think that will look way better and people will have a better view about what is happening with the traces and everything and the spans. But I don't think it's going to affect by any means flags or the design that we initially thought. I mean, the this design, as well as how the hotel is intended to work, it follows the same convention about getting an event and pass what is in the metadata and create the span. It's kind of a converter. I get the event based what you set in the alert, and I convert it to a trace, and I send that into your backend system or your hotel support the system. So that's
Right.
how that's how it's going to be with this design as well. Here, what I'm
All
trying
right.
to do is extending a little bit what does support, and also having this umbrella level of roots and whatsoever. Because now it just follow the principle of you have a source and you apply something, and that's all, and that's what we consider a trace. But there could be multiple combinations if we add customization in the um, in the formula, so to say. So it could be wider. Yeah.
Right, right.
So
Okay. So you're saying that regardless of what you find out there about the
yeah.
SDK, the idea of dynamically embedding this special annotation through the Flux
Mm.
appliers is still a good idea, right?
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
it's a good it's a good idea. I mean, you can check. Already have the implementation is of 10 lines of code for customized controller and identification controller. And also, I mean, it doesn't have to be for 2.7. I think you're about to releasing it. It could be for the upcoming release, but I think it's a good to have something that is going to be pretty helpful in case of people that is using customization to apply Fluxity resources and that's have would like to have control under what the customization is applying and also see all the timestamps about what the things are happening at which point in time. So yeah.
right. So
Mm.
just for me to understand before we wrap up, like I just want to
Yeah.
understand exactly
Mhm.
how so let's say we embed this annotation in
Mhm.
the resources applied by customization. We
Yeah.
embed because yeah, we can use event.toolkit for this.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, right, the one we already have. If we
Mhm.
do this, so what the customization will put in the value of that annotation is the revision of the source
Yeah.
it has, right? So let's say
Mhm.
I have a customization and the revision of the source my customization is consuming is 1, 2, 3, right?
Mhm.
I'm gonna put the annotation event dot toolkit dot fluxid dot io slash something that we
Mhm.
are yet to define, and the
Yeah.
value will be 1, 2, 3, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I have two questions about this. The first question is,
Mhm.
if I have a tree of customizations that apply other sources that are applied by other customizations that apply other sources that are applied by yet other like yet another layer of customizations,
Mhm.
if I understand correctly, the revision that each customization applies in their resources is
Yeah.
the revision of its own source, right? So if you have a
Yeah.
tree, it means that the 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 resource will always have the revision of the source of the customization that applied it. So this annotation will change in the layers, right? Like it's Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, that's true because I mean, at the end, the source, the annotation, the content of this annotation is going to be the source of the customization
Right.
because that's what it's going to get from the event or
Right.
what it gets. Yeah.
Right. All right. So you're saying it's not like first I was imagining like some crazy thing about
Mhm.
propagating a root
Yeah, all the way
source
down. Yeah.
revision all the way down. That's not the case, right?
No, no, because I here with this design, we are always relying on the source that the customization is using. It relies on. So it's going to be always a one-to-one match between a source and a customization, and then all the resources underneath. And that will be, imagine that you have a source customization, and this customization applies to another customization. So this second customization, the downstream one, is going to, the revision is going to point to the source that is pointing to, not to the first one. Not
Right.
sure if you, yeah. It's a bit weird because it could be really complex, like the combinations. But at the end, this relies on the customization source. So that is what is going to be populated all across to the resources.
Right. So
Yeah,
but yeah, so the answer is yes, right? Like
yeah,
like the revision, the
mm,
annotation with the revision that the resource is going to have is the revision of the source of the customization that applied it.
exactly. Yeah,
End of story, right? Okay.
yeah,
Um all right. With this information, I think I have everything I need to maybe start thinking about of an API to offer this behavior.
mhm.
Did you propose something already in the issue for what the API should be?
Well, not about the PI. I here I haven't. I was more interested in be able to have that in a single trace. I was thinking about that in a feature flag, but could be. I mean, we can add another. Yeah, whatsoever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could also be a future flag. Yeah, well, I guess I think at least we're on the same page of what this API needs to do, so
Mm-hmm.
we
Yeah.
can think about how this API should be, if it's like an object level API or a controller
Mm-hmm.
flag. But anyway, like the
Okay.
second question I want to ask is now,
Mm-hmm.
how does this annotation
Mm-hmm.
metadata, like how is this processed on the hotel provider in notification controller? So right now you do like to extract the span ID, you get the alert UID and you get the revision, you do something
Yeah.
with them, and boom, you have the span ID, right?
Yeah.
uh
Exactly.
how can you please remind me of what do we do with them, like exactly the string format, and
Yeah.
how will this revision that's coming from this yet
Mm-hmm.
another standard annotation key,
Yeah.
how will this be part of the span ID, or if it will be part of something else? It's going to be
Yeah.
part of the parent relationship
Yeah.
thingy.
Yeah. Here the idea will be. I mean, the convention will remain, so it's going to be the alert UID and the revision. But what we are going to have is basically check if in the if in the
How
event
is it
metadata.
how is it today? It's like a slash, it's like UID slash revision
I,
or what?
I think it's colon,
Colon,
UID colon, and then the
right.
revision. Yeah,
But something simple as that, right? We just
yeah,
concatenate the two somehow,
exactly. And generate the
and
checksum, and that's all. Mhm.
that will not change if we
No,
implement this feature.
no. The only thing that we are going to replace is the revision. I mean, it's going to be either coming
Oh,
from, yeah,
oh, so all right. So there's gonna be like a priority order or from where of from
exactly.
where the revision comes. So let's say if it's not present anywhere, I suppose you don't even send a trace, right? Or do
No, no, I
you?
mean, because we expect that we are going to get a revision, but the difference is going to come from, coming back to my example that I have here, the revision comes from the OCR repository or from the Git repository. And I know that from the naming convention that I have for the annotations. So I know that always I'm going to have um, a revision annotation. But if I if as just to put a name for the top source, if I have a source revision, I'm going to use that one instead. So the source revision will prevail over the revision. And if it doesn't exist, it's going to get a revision. It's going to use the revision.
All right. So for example, let's say I have a customization
Yeah.
that sends an event to notification controller. That event
Yeah.
will have the revision of the source of this customization.
Yeah.
But this customization also has this specific customization. Let's say it also has the annotation that was propagated to it by its applier, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, does that have a higher priority over the revision of the source of the customization?
Yeah. I mean the source of the source of revision of the customization will prevail over the source of that particular resource. So to say, to
So
create a
yeah,
root
it's
span.
basically let's make it simple. Like what
Yeah.
will have priority? The source revision of the
Yeah.
customization or the annotation? Which of the two?
The source revision of the customization that will prevail over the other one if it exists. If not, it's
Well,
going to get the
but
other one.
but I'm confused now because
I mean, at the end of the day,
the every
both. Mhm.
customization will have the source revision.
Yes, but yes, but if you have a source in the middle, it's going to change. So imagine that you have a customization that applies a source and a collection of hem releases, just to make it up. What the hem release is going to get is going to be the OCS repository revision, not the customization. Now, I'm saying now.
Not sure I follow. Like,
Yeah, imagine that you have, just coming back to the example that I have here, key repository
mhm,
customization, OCR repository, and hem releases. So the hem
right, I'm looking at
release,
it.
okay, so the hem release, what it's going to get from the annotations is going to be the revision from the OCR repository. It's not even aware about what the Git repository source is or the revision. It's not
Right
aware of
now,
it
right?
because
In the current implementation.
exactly with the current
Yes, yes,
implementation. But with
sure.
this change, what is going to happen is like the hem release is going to get two annotations, one corresponding to the Git repository and another one for the OCR repository. So based on the naming conventions that we have there, we can say, okay, the Git repository will prevail over the OCR repository to build the trace ID, the root span ID.
Okay, but I'm failing to see how the Helm release will get two annotations here. I can imagine it getting one, which is the revision of the Git repository, right? So the customization that applies the OCR repository and the Helm releases, what that customization will do while applying is embed the revision of the Git repository as an annotation in the Helm release, right? How will
Exactly.
that customization find out that it it's also deploying an OCI repository and it has to grab the revision from that OCI repository and put it on the Helm release? That's impossible, right?
No, because I mean the OCR repository, let's say, injects the revision as annotation in the head release out of the box. So the only thing is like we have to make sure that it doesn't clash. Like the naming is different, but you might find both. Indeed, when you see the hem revision, the hem release, the
So
event,
so
when you
what you're
check it.
saying is that okay, maybe I misunderstood what you were saying earlier, is that
Mhm.
uh in the event they will all come like in the event metadata
Yeah.
field, right? Like that's
Yeah.
what you're saying, that it's two annotations.
Yeah.
But I was thinking in terms of object annotations. So,
Oh. Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Because that's what we're talking about, right? Like
Yeah.
the customization will embed an annotation in the Helm release object, right?
Yeah, as well as the OCR repository, because I mean, it's going to spread all over. There is no difference.
Right, right,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Mhm.
both the OCR repository and the Helm release objects will have an annotation embedded from customized controller with the
Exactly.
revision of the Git repository. Fine.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
what you're saying, okay, when the Helm controller reconciles the Helm release and sends an event to notification controller, this
Yeah.
event will land in notification controller with
Yeah.
the annotation from the Helm release object and
Yeah.
from the revision. And also there it will also have a field with the revision of the OCI repository because that's what it already has, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So
So
it's going to have both. Mhm.
right. And what you're saying is um what you're saying is now every object is going to have its own source revision and the revision of what applied it, where it came from.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that does not have to go over and over. Like we're never gonna have a long set of revisions in an object because this doesn't matter. Like the just having a link to the parent is enough, right? You can build a
Yeah.
whole tree with each node pointing only to its own parent, right?
Yeah.
So if that's one of the definitions of a tree. So you can you can have a tree, a complex tree of traces by just linking with the parent. Yeah. All right. So okay, then how in the code of the hotel provider,
Mhm.
you're just gonna choose, you're gonna choose. So what you're gonna do is like you still will have like the alert UID
Yeah.
concatenated with a revision. It's just a matter
Yeah.
of choosing which revision will that be, and
Exactly.
the priority will be the parent.
Exactly. The customization that applies, if exists. If not, the revision coming from, in this case, the OCR repository.
All right, but then does are we not losing information? If like let's say Helm
Mhm.
release, the event about the Helm release sent from Helm controller will land in notification controller with
Yeah.
with both with the
Yeah.
revision of the OCI repository and with the revision of the OCI, the Git repository. Then you see,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I will discard the revision of the OCI repository and I'll use the revision of the Git repository. Then
Mhm.
then where like is the revision of the OCR repository not relevant? Like
No, I mean, it's going to be added as part of the tags. I mean, it does that automatically. What I did basically is getting all the metadata that is there and added as part of the span. So you should be able to filter and everything because the tag will be there with the revision. What is pending and is not still is like using that revision from the OCR repository to create this parent-child relationship. That's what is missing. And that's what I would like to have or look like. But it's not implemented yet. But now with the implementation that I proposed, the tentative implementation, you should be able to filter and everything based on the revision ID of the OCR repository because it's part of the tags. I added all the everything that is added the metadata is going to be added as part of the tags because another thing that we been discussing is like if we add these cluster annotations, this environment annotation, everything should be visible as part of the tags because you would like to filter and everything based on these criteria. So that will be also visible
okay, so
as
you're
part of it.
saying there will still be a connection between the 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 span related to the Helm release and the OCI revision.
Yeah,
There will still be
they
a relationship between them being established.
exactly. Even though both are going to be under the same trace ID, root span. I would like, and that's what I wanted to see this thing about the OpenTelemetry SDK and everything, have a parent-child relationship, being there's a repository, the parent, and then he releases the child. And then you have a clear visibility of, okay, I have all these objects and belonging to this customization, but I see that this OCR repository does imply this collection of releases, and so on and so forth. So that's
Right.
kind of the idea. Yeah, but it's not implemented yet. That's what I wanted to stress a little bit. Yeah.
Right. All right. I mean, yeah, the idea sounds great to me. Like, it's definitely the next step, I guess. Like connecting. It's all. I mean, it's the whole point of tracing, right? It's connecting
Yeah.
operations together, and yeah. Yeah. So what's next? Like, what should we expect as the next? I mean, what next? What is your next move here, and what
Y-
should we expect to hear from you next?
Yeah, so I have these two tentative changes. What I will do most likely, perhaps tomorrow or next week, is creating a pull request, and we can follow up the discussion there. And meanwhile, I will play around about this parent-child relationship, trying to set that up and see how it looks like, and I can share a couple of use cases with different combinations. If you have any suggestion, I can give it a try as well. My intention today was just to kick off a little bit of discussion, but yeah, my next stage
So
is create a pull
did
request.
we address everything you wanted? Are we missing anything?
No, not from my side, but yeah,
Right.
I will
Okay.
try as I go, as I play around with it, especially this parent child. I will let you know, and we can discuss further. Yeah, if you like.
All right. Yeah, I'm curious to see what comes next from this. Curious to
Yeah,
see new screenshots
perfect. Yeah,
from Jaeger.
I will point everything to this issue that I mentioned, and I will create a pull request, and then we can follow it up here. Yeah, and I will try to join the upcoming dev meetings to yeah, to discuss if there is
Cool.
something. Mhm.
Great.
Yeah, thank
Matthias,
you.
Hello. Hi, Augie.
do you still have a few minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Um,
All right. So, I guess we can. Is it relevant for the recording, Augie?
no, I
Okay.
mean, it could be recorded, but it's not relevant.
Okay. So, if you don't have anything else, Adrian, I guess we'll stop the recording and
Yeah,
see what Augie wants to discuss.
sure. Thank you, thank you. I need sorry, but I
All
need
right.
to drop, but thank you.
Cool.
And
Bye.
sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye bye.
Uh,